I mean, what was your presence? I mean, what percentage went back and
most of the people, they went back. I mean, but the girls, who were there in Bangalore, they stayed back there because they had the hostel facilities. The transport was not available. So we tried to make their life a little comfortable by creating, different kinds of, the innovative ways of, celebrating their birthdays or recreational activities, plus, giving various kinds of talk on COVID, how to protect yourself, from COVID. So they were feeling much better in the hostels rather than going back, to their places. So once it opened, they went back, for a few days and again came back. So,
and I mean, what percentage people were found positive in your entire establishment?
Entire establishment, this thing, I think here I can talk about, 5%. Here, out of say, and I'm talking about the Faridabad itself, say out of 10,000 people we have in Faridabad, so the people, what we found was about 500 people.
5%?
About 500 people. And there were a couple of deaths also.
No, you see, that is your advantage is the age of the worker.
Yes.
The average age of the worker.
Yes.
That is a critical factor.
That is again like the Indigo cruise. The average age being lower, the immunity factor is higher. Plus, because of the industry provide the basic amenities like hygiene and, like their place of stay, you can easily
tell Sanjay 5 minutes to go.
So that is also very positive in putting it down.
Sanjay ji, 5 minutes to go. Is he on?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Shabani is ready?
Sir, I'm ready.
Yeah. Okay, Sanjay ji is ready. Okay, right.
Sir, but all the speakers haven't come in.
Yeah, I know. There are more 5-7 minutes more.
Yeah.
So needs to be alert to let them in.
Abdul, just keep a watch on in letting them in, please.
I like Dr. Koshy's, follow-up, so intense, really,
I am at your service, sir.
It's wonderful, to have this kind of.
Basab has come. Yeah.
So who's checking in with Rupali Shukla's name? Any idea?
She is our.
But she is not supposed to come on connecting on audio.
Not one. Actually, she was asking for a link.
You must have given the wrong link.
You do not let them in the panelists.
No, but then who's the host can only request her.
Host is Sanjay. Yeah. Just tell Rupali on phone.
Hello, good afternoon, Dr. Koshy.
Good afternoon, Sharada Prasad ji.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Sir, come WhatsApp.
Tell Rupali.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
How are you, ma'am?
Fine.
Yeah, good to see you.
Ma'am, good afternoon. Welcome aboard.
Devendra is there. Everybody is there. Yeah, Basav is there. Now only.
I think there was some confusion about the link. Somebody has just asked whether they have to use the same link that was used day before.
No, I had answered to Dilip and also informed his office. Yes.
Okay.
But he is likely to be 5-10 minutes late. That time itself, he had told you.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Giri. How are you?
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. Fine, sir.
Seeing after a very long time.
Yeah, we met there at Pusa. That meeting was there on skill.
Yeah, there was a. I remember that meeting.
Yeah.
Right. So how are things, Dr. Koshy?
Everything is okay, sir. I think being 18th of December, this must be the last day on which all of us are, before we get into a holiday mood. So we are taxing you just before the week of celebration or some kind of a holiday mood sets in.
The government of India keeps working till 31st of.
I know. I said about the sentiment. Everything is about the mood and the sentiment.
Right.
I think we are waiting for Sri Roshan Bed ji.
Roshan Bed is here.
Roshan is there.
Okay,
Only-
and Sri
only-
Dilip Shenoy ji.
He will be late by 5 minutes or 10 minutes. He told
Okay.
at that point itself. Yeah.
I
Okay.
think we can start, let him join.
Yeah, so just tell Abdul to keep watching for Dilip and then let him in. Now we will start sharp at 4.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, you can go actually.
I can go ahead?
Yeah. One more minute. One more minute.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, mobile time is 16:01, so you can go. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good evening to one and all. It's a pleasure having all of you on board today. And as we wish to proceed with this webinar, DFU very proudly presents a webinar on future of jobs and skills. And just to start introducing the August panel over here, the panelists who are here, to start with Ms. Sunita Sangvi, a very dynamic personality certainly, is the principal advisor with MSDE, having contributed to the development of skill development ecosystem while she was with erstwhile Planning Commission. She has been actively associated with work relating to skill development. Welcome, ma'am. Welcome aboard. Then we have Dr. Sanjay Kumar Panda. He is an IAS retired, and he started his career as a Chief Secretary of Tripura, then became the Secretary of Ministry of Textile. His passion for skill development got recognition in 2016 when he became the Chairman Executive Committee of Tripura Skill Development Mission, which he has been, and after which he has been in the faculty of many leading institutes. He has also written many books to his credit. Welcome on board, sir. Then we have Sri Sharda Prasad. He is also an IAS officer and advisor to the Skill and Livelihood Ministry of Shipping, Government of India, former DGET, Ministry of Labor and Employment, Government of India. He has been having vast experience in playing the advisor's role, especially to the Chief Minister of Arunachal Pradesh. Also to mention that Sri Sharad Prasad's committee, who examined the working of the first stage of National Skill Development Policy. Welcome on board, sir.
Thank you.
Then we have Sri G.D. Giri. He is the director of Shahi Exports Private Limited. He has played a major role in the transformation of Shahi Exports and placing emphasis on soft and life skills through PACE and GAP in US. Welcome on board, sir. Then we have Sri Dilip Shenoy, who will be joining us shortly, but I wish to introduce him also. Presently, the Secretary General of FICCI and former MD and CEO of NSDC, a graduate from Delhi University, became the Deputy Director General of IAM, that is Indian Automobile Manufacturers. Welcome on board, sir. As and when you come, we will again introduce you. Then we have Sri Basab Banerjee, the co-founder of Magic Billion, former head of standards NSDC, with 40 years of international experience in vocational system training in design management. He supported the government's effort in national skill development. He also led Government of India's Talent Cooperation Initiative with UK, Germany, Australia, EU, and New Zealand. Welcome on board, sir. Then we have Sri Pallab Banerjee. He is the Group President of Pearl Global Industries Limited. He has vast experience in apparel sourcing, manufacturing strategies, and operations. Highly skilled in negotiation, retail, textile, sourcing. Also worked in Gap as their Vice President. Welcome on board, Mr. Banerjee. Then we have Sri Devendra Gupta. He is the founding partner of Asmara International Limited, an alumnus of NIFT. His entrepreneurial mind and skills led him to start his own venture. His career has been expressed in three strengths: market and trends understanding, quick adaptation of new technologies, and people management. Welcome on board, sir. Then we have Sri Roshan Bedji. He is the director of Paragon Apparels Private Limited, a pass out from NIFT in 1998, started his own company, and with the present situation, he is leading with post-COVID transformation successfully. Welcome on board, sir. Then we have, of course, last but not the least, the most inspiring, encouraging gentleman amongst us, Dr. Daly Koshy. He is the Director General and CEO of NHO, an educator par excellence with transformatory leadership of NID Ahmedabad, NIFT, and now over last decade with ATDC. He is a well-known speaker, author, and has been bestowed by many national and international awards for his outstanding contribution to this industry. And very quickly, I will introduce two other gentlemen on board. One is Mr. Sanjay Chawla. He happens to be the chief editor publisher of DFU publication, who is also going to take this conference ahead. And we also have Mr. Salil Chawla, who's the director of DFU publication, who would be there to support and ask questions to the panelists. So welcome aboard, all of you, and a fantastic going ahead. Mr. Sanjay Chawla, if you can may please take over, sir.
Mute. Yeah.
Sorry. Welcome, namaskar, and good evening, everyone. On the macro level, let us look at the status of Indian demography, status on jobs and skill. By 2030, it is expected that a third of world's working population between the age of 15 to 59 years would be from India. Approximately 70 million, that is 7 crores, additional individuals between the age of 15 to 59 years are expected to enter the country's labor force by 2023. The total workforce by 2023 will be approximately 404 million, that is over 40 crore people. This will include 59 million, that is approximately 6 crore youth between the age of 15 to 59 years. Obviously, looking at the huge workforce, it has brought an increased focus on employment and the job creation, making a very large population of India targeted for skill and trainings. The need for increasing the skills of the current workforce and the strategies for reskilling and upskilling are also becoming more important. It is felt that over half of the India's workers will need reskilling by 2022. All these statistics indicate that India not only needs skilling for the job opportunities to be created, but also has the potential to emerge as the global hub for providing skilled manpower to the other nations as well. However, the proportion of formally skilled workers in India as of now is extremely low at 4.69% only of the total workforce, whereas if we compare it with other countries, it is 24% in China, 52% in US, 68% in UK, 75% in Germany, 80% in Japan, and as high as 96% in South Korea. The reason could be attributed as India has been mainly an agricultural economy till last few decades, though the emphasis on the industry is growing now, whereas the other countries grew mainly as industrial economies. Now, coming on the COVID scenario, generally the industry should not overly bogged down by COVID, and it should be seen only as an ad hoc and one-time situation. But COVID may set few trends that may have a long-lasting impact. on the jobs and need of the skill. As per a study, The Future of Jobs 2020, there are few key trends as the speed of technology adoption has increased, causing a double disruption in addition to COVID-caused recession and economic contraction. The technology adoption by companies will have consequences on jobs and skills. The number of jobs that have been or will be destroyed are higher than the jobs being created. Skill gaps continue to be high. Workers will require reskilling and to pick up new skills on the job. The window of opportunity to reskill and upskill workers has become shorter in the new constrained labor market. To have a long-term view on jobs and skilling, the Government of India fortunately has announced Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, that is self-reliant India, to propel the country on the path of self-sustenance. Skill development is going to be the backbone of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Skilling, upskilling and reskilling of India's workforce will play a crucial role in the success of Atmanirbhar Bharat. As skilling India would include skilling of our youth as well as skilling of our women population. Apparel sector in a way has done a wonderful job for mass women population of this country who are generally not highly educated but enjoy around 73% share in the total workforce engaged in apparel industry. The textile and apparel sector that has always brought opportunities for India has been identified as a key sector in building a self-reliant India. With this background, I will reach out to our extremely talented expert panel constituting of policymakers, industry experts with their hands-on experience and academic experts who can perhaps crystal gaze the future of jobs and skill in apparel textile sector. So I would like to start with Sunita ji with my first question. Sunita ji, having been at the highest policy making level, how do you look at skill development efforts for key manufacturing sectors, especially textile and apparel sector, and the role of MSMEs, especially post-COVID crisis, to create sufficient jobs?
Thank you, Sanjay ji. Let me at the outset thank you, Daly Koshy ji, DFU, and especially Shada Prasad ji for inviting me for this. I would like to thank Shada Prasad sir because he has been my mentor from the Planning Commission days. He was the one who introduced me to the concept of skill development and he involved me in the first national policy on skill development. Thank you, sir. Now, to address to your question, I think you have already indicated that we have a huge workforce and 1 in 5 will be the Indian youth who will be the part of the global workforce. Now, in today's trying time, there are 2 challenges that we are encountering in the world of work. This includes the IR 4.0 and the disruption which has been multiplied by the COVID pandemic. Now, these 2 developments have clearly shown that while many job roles would disappear, many new would emerge, requiring fresh skilling, upskilling, and reskilling of the workforce for them to stay relevant and to be employable. Now, already there is a huge automation that is happening in various sectors, and textile, apparel, and many of the manufacturing sector are no exception to that. The manufacturing sector has always actually been the focal point for the skill development initiative, whether it was a long-term training ecosystem of ITIs, of which Shada Prasadi was the Director General of Training at one point of time, as well as the short-term training which was introduced to scale up the efforts of the skill development, because in 2009 it was thought that we do require 500 million people to be skilled. But what we did not anticipate at that point of time was we thought that it is going to be the fresh skilling, but What we did not prepare ourselves was for the reskilling and upskilling, which was even at that point of time the need of the hour. But today, in today's scenario, the Ministry of Skill Development has already realized that a lot of effort needs to be put on reskilling and upskilling, and we are focusing on reskilling and upskilling, and we are fully geared up for the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan as well, because we know that unless and until we have a policy which is focusing at a local level, we will not be in a position to meet the requirement of various sectors. So what the Ministry of Skill Development has done is that instead of having a top-down approach, we are now focusing on a bottom-up approach wherein we are involving the local level district administration to map the skill gap, because jobs and skills are very, very intertwined. Unless and until we know the what kind of a jobs, we have to anticipate the kind of jobs that are going to be there as a result of IR and the kind of jobs that are going to go out as a result of this pandemic. We need to map those skill sets, and then we have to train our people. Many people will have to be freshly skilled, many people will have to be reskilled, and many people will have to be reskilled. Now, if you look at the way the government of India, whether from the Ministry of Skill Development or whether from the Ministry of Textile or the Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise, have tried to actually address these challenges, with the performance-linked, I think, initiative scheme, which is being extended to the textile sector, we are seeing that there is going to be growth in the employment and skill intensity in this particular sector. And the MMFF and the technical textile segment has been a special beneficiary with about, I think, more than 10,000 crore of our support. And I personally feel that for the textile and apparel sector, this could be a game changer, as India already has a good base in design and production. Now, if the industry uses these incentives very judiciously on innovation, technology, and research capabilities, it can build a sustainable competitive advantage for this sector, at least in this particular segment. Besides it, I think India has traditionally excelled in niche and designed exports versus the generic textile exports due to limitations of scale, which is compared to China. And this PLI scheme can change this for certain segments. The textile apparel, I think, sector is one of the champion sectors in manufacturing and has been one of the key sectors for skill development initiatives. The apparel sector
It switched off something.
Her power, I think.
Yeah.
She lost the power.
Hello.
I'll just call her and tell her maybe that it is not audible. Just give me a minute.
Can I move to the second questions with the second panelist?
Sanjay, will you wait for a minute? I'll just check with her. 1 minute, please.
Yes, you will come back. No problem.
Yeah.
Continuous dialoguing.
Yeah, I like to reach out to Sanjay Panda ji. Sir, you had taken a lot of efforts for skill development of youth of Northeast, but somehow the expected entrepreneurship is not really emerging. Do you think more than that, more than just skill development, the focus should be on developing entrepreneurs and an ecosystem to support? That is one. And a follow-up question is, you have written a book on CSR support. How can corporates play a better role in skill development? Sanjay Panda ji, please.
At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Koshy and Mr. Chawla for bringing all of us together on this extremely important subject.
I think you got disconnected.
And
yeah, go ahead, sir.
You see, at the outset, let me mention that the country, our constitution seeks to provide equality, justice, and liberty and fraternity for all. And in that context, particularly for a young nation, livelihood opportunity is going to be extremely critical. And in this context, the textile industry, of which the skill development in apparel sector is a subset, hold enormous promise because of three specific things. Firstly, for unit investment, the employment generation in the apparel sector is the highest. Second point is the export potential. And third point, most important, is the social aspect, which was just briefly touched by Mr. Chawla, that it is actually provides employment to women, and more so women who are not highly educated. It is 10 plus to young girls who form, I think, bulk of the workforce of the industry. You see, in any industrial setup, there would be changes like this COVID. Some changes may be unforeseen. And I think we have the ability to rise up to the expectation we are just discussing before it starts. Dr. Giri was mentioning various aspects and the innovative steps that they have adopted for overcoming the challenges. So in this particular setup, let us try to understand and appreciate that we are a very big country, and the industry is coming up in a specific areas due to obvious reason. Wherever there is infrastructure, and wherever there is other facilities, particularly like Maharashtra, Gujarat, the Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, in the NCR region, bulk of the industry that is coming up. You have just mentioned about Northeast. Northeast has workforce, but due to variety of region, the industrialization pace has been slow. So what I would suggest that in addition to talking about skilling, upskilling, reskilling, etc., which are important, we should also look into how to create new industries, bring new investment, particularly in the textile sector. And the two areas that was briefly mentioned, one was the man-made fiber sector, other is the technical textile sector, are areas where there is enormous opportunity, and it is necessary to go for additional investment, setting up new unit. That is what is critical. And unless we set up new unit merely by changing numbers, it is going from one place to another, but overall increase will not come up. Rather, due to the impact of technology, there would be shrinkage. In fact, that will become a little bit, it will have adverse impact on the social aspect. All of you know what the Bill Gates has mentioned is that about in the context of using robots, that there should be a tax on use of robot, so that we can provide unemployment allowance. That is a social necessity. We must appreciate that particular thing. Northeast, what was just mentioned in fact, this was the initiative which was announced by Honorable Prime Minister in November 2014. And in each of the 8 northeastern states, we have set up for the first time, the modern apparel and garment center at a cost of 18.18 crore, which are totally funded by Ministry of Textiles, with the 3 units in each center with 100 machines each, all having total integrated facility. The idea was that Bangladesh is very close to Northeast, and all of you know that the share of Bangladesh in global textile is much higher than that of India. Due to variety of reasons, one of the main factors is because of the trade agreement, So trade agreement issue is also required to be pursued by the government of India, both by the Ministry of Commerce and Ministry of Textile. Now that in United States there is a change in government, hopefully, we'll have better opportunity in, accessing the US market in respect of our apparel and garment, because those are critical areas for giving a big boost to the sector. Second point I would like to mention is that in addition to this trade agreement, the role of the state government. You see, Government of India is doing. Government of India, in fact, you may recall that the biggest scheme for the organized sector is known as TUF, Technology Upgradation Fund Scheme. And 30th December 2015, when it was last amended, the emphasis was on 2 things. Emphasis was whichever segment is going to provide export and is going to provide employment will have the highest subsidy. That way the thinking is very clear that apparel garment sector is going to get its due share so far as Government of India is concerned. You see, I had the privilege of working as Chief Secretary Tripura for a period of about 5 years. And I strongly feel that in this particular case, promoting the industry, the state government contribution, state government participation is of vital importance. You see, like Mr. Giri and others who have worked with the state government can also give their views on this aspect, starting from getting a land, getting a water, getting electricity connection, whatever you tell, everything comes under the jurisdiction of the state government. And we find that wherever there is a proactive state government, industry find it easy to set up new units. What is the basic requirement, again, I'll mention, is setting up a new unit. Is that thing we must give always at all platforms. We should stress that thing. Northeast, that venture was started, and I am hopeful that my successor and in the state government level, the 8 state government level, they will give push to this thing so that it will create a new opportunity for our unemployed youth. We are talking that our country is one, so people from Northeast should migrate to Bangalore, migrate to Tirupur, migrate to Faridabad and start working in the apparel sector. That is one model. Why not we think of the other model where we decentralize the unit, or like the existing, the big partners like SAI and others, they can think of starting their decentralized unit in the northeastern state and with the start employing people right there, so that many things can be taken care of, like the COVID related thing can be overcome. Of course, this requires very active participation from the state government side. I'll quickly touch the second point that Mr. Chawla mentioned. I had the opportunity of, basically studying and working with corporate social responsibility for about 2 decades. And, I had my first publication in 2008 before it was made mandatory. And now in 2000, this was updated in 2018. I have come out with the second edition of that book, Corporate Social Responsibility in India. I had indicated that corporate social responsibility should not be construed as merely giving 2% of profit. That is considering CSR in a very, very narrow sense, because you see what is happening. When this particular amendment of the Companies Act and insertion of Section 135 was mooted, the estimate was about 15,000 crores would be available in a year as 2% of the preceding 3 years, 2% profit contribution, that will come to 15,000 crores. And if you see, on an average, we are getting like 13,000 odd crores. 13,000 crores is coming as CSR 2% profit. 13,000 crores is a pittance. And this 13,000 crores is being spent almost over everything. Education, health, skill development, and a whole lot of things. So I had suggested that corporate social responsibility should be construed to look into 3 things. First aspect is that the corporate must follow the laws of the land. Whether it is, paying equal wage to male and female worker, whether it is taking care of the pollution, whether it is not engaging the child labor, all compliance with the laws of the land in letter and spirit is the first and foremost thing about a corporate. That is what is the responsibility of the corporate towards the society. Because the corporate cannot be told as socially responsible if they go on, engaging child labor and make a temple or open a hospital. No, that is just bypassing the main spirit of constitution. Second point I would like to mention: let corporate not spend any money, but let them promote ancillaries. Like what I just mentioned, if our existing player of the corporate in the apparel and garment center go and take over those units in the northeastern state and run it effectively, they would be creating wealth and employment. That is many times higher than spending 2%, putting a mobile van or giving some hospital aid or this thing. That is the thing I have specifically underlined, because corporate social responsibility is not just 2%. It is being an active stakeholder of the society. So that is what is my strong advocacy for the point. And I would appeal to all the distinguished, the corporate leaders and, media personnel and NGO participant and like Dr. Koshy, the training expert, all these things, to emphasize on this point. 2 points specifically. First point is that we must create favorable factor to bring in more investment, more unit, and a growth of the, textile sector. And second thing, the corporate must discharge their social responsibility by setting up their unit in the aspirational district in the northeast, because that I think is the best way of discharging their responsibility. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Pandaji, I think you have made some very important points. One was very interesting when you say that robots should be charged with they should be penalized with the tax and things like that. We'll come back to you. We'll come back to you with the industry revolution threatening to more and more penalties. That means
that is Bill Gates' specific recommendation.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Sunita ji, we missed you. You had got disconnected. Your network problem was there. Can you please complete your point?
Yeah.
Please?
Yeah. As I was saying, that the textile and the apparel sector, they are the champion sectors as far as the manufacturing is concerned, and they have been one of the key sectors for the skill development initiative also. In fact, the apparel sector has developed a large number of qualification packs, and they have also rolled out QPs and qualifications for textile sector per se. And many of these qualification packs are qualification packs which are for a high-end demand as well. And Ministry of Skill Development is also being gearing actually towards enabling the higher level of skilling, so that we are able to meet the demand of the emerging market. Because the COVID has shown us that there are many countries like USA or European Union or Japan who are looking for production sources which are located elsewhere compared to vis-a-vis China. So this creates an opportunity very well for Indian textile industry to capitalize on this and increase the export. But this could only be possible when we are able to actually map our standards to the global standards as well. So from the ministry side or from the government side, we are also been looking at how do we benchmark our standards to the international standards, so that we are able to produce the kind of skilled manpower that meets the requirement of these very countries. Because if we are able to meet these countries, not only will we be able to generate a lot of employment opportunities, but also as a result, a lot of foreign exchange earning can also be made available. To your point on the micro, small and medium enterprises, I think the micro, small enterprises are the major job creator in the country. And they have been the worst sufferer when it comes to COVID crisis, or maybe IR 4.0 also, because they do not have that high level of digitization, one. Second, they don't have the capacity to train as well, because this is a challenge that they have been facing, both in terms of in the digital skill as also otherwise, because these micro, small and medium enterprises are so small, they're just not in a position to address the skill gaps that they need to address. So I think many of the programs that have been put in place in the Atmanirbhar Bharat program, whether it is a mega credit support, wherein an allocation of rupees 3 lakh crore is announced as a part of the program, to provide 100% guarantee coverage to banks and non-banking financial companies to enable them to provide emergency credit. This will, I think, will certainly go a long way in sustaining these micro, small and medium enterprises. Second point is very related to what Panda sir was talking about, that you have to promote the ancillaries. We from the Ministry of Skill Development have also been talking and asking the big industries to support their ancillaries, at least for taking up the apprenticeship, because everybody realized that a work-based skill training is very, very important. But for this work-based training, the micro, small and medium enterprises do not neither have the capacity nor do they want to spend the resources. So we have also been focusing on these large corporate so that they can handhold at least the ancillaries who are facilitating them in their work. Second, I think that Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, the equity infusion that has been made about 50,000 crore, this will all through the funds of fund will also definitely facilitate the micro, small and medium enterprises. And the change in the definition of micro, small and medium enterprises to cover more companies and link it to the turnover will certainly help these micro, small and medium enterprises to not only innovate, digitize and build their capacities, but also facilitate creation of job. And I think due to all these efforts, the spirit of the MSME sector is to some extent has been restored, and they will remain therefore the biggest employment creators and better than their pre-COVID performance. But again, I will just harp upon a fact that we all do need to map the skill gap so that we are able to meet the requirement of the new markets that are emerging. And then we are able to reskill and upskill our people. Ministry of Skill Development has already seized of this. And our new programs, we are doing the bottom-up approach, and we are also focusing on reskilling and upskilling. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It is interesting to know that MSME perhaps will be redefined to broaden its turnover limits or something like that, which may open up new vistas for the industry. Thanks a lot. We'll come back to you in the second round. I'll now reach out to Dr. Daly Koshy ji. Dr. Saab, you have been heading skill-based institutions like NIFT, NID, and during last decade, ATDC, which is the leader in skill training for apparel sector. How do you see the job creation scenario? What are the challenges and opportunities on the table, especially during and post-COVID?
Thank you. It's such a great pleasure to be with such eminent people whom I have great respect for several years. And it is good to, present some of these ideas, but I wouldn't like to take too much of time, but I would rather hear others. But I would just briefly touch, since you have asked this, a couple of points. The good news is that in 2009, when the first national skill development policy was announced, the skilled workforce percentage was just about 2%. So as of 2014, it improved. But when we sit in 2019, just before COVID, it had already reached about 5%, which is a big jump for a country like India. So I think it is substantial improvement in the skill ecosystem. Second point is that the United Nations Population Fund's report, which I was thinking earlier that, our demographic window of opportunity is going to really taper down by 2035. But the report says very clearly, the window of opportunity is actually from 2005 to 2050. And only by 2035, it starts tapering. However, the tapering or the going out of this window is going to be different for different states. So this is a very important aspect. It is not that across India, it is going to just go out in terms of demographic dividend. So it is going to go by state in terms of its geography, its demography, its population parameters, etc., the health, the education, everything will come in play when we look at this. So that means that we have a great window of opportunity to really emerge as a skill capital for the world, which is what Sunita ma'am has mentioned. And Panda sir has also mentioned how this is to be taken forward. So with these two kind of parameters, I feel that, the reskilling, the upskilling and new skilling is one side of the story. The other side of the story is about relearning, unlearning, and new learning. So if you really want to go forward with the two major sweeps of things which are happening, two major vectors or major trajectories, one is the technological, leaping forward, or what we call as exponential technologies. The second is the post-COVID pandemic realities, which is going to change substantially the world, which as we knew. Obviously, it is, we may probably look at it as a passing, phenomenon, but there is going to be a lasting impact in terms of the two reports which have come in, the World Economic Forum report, which was mentioned by Sanjay ji, and also the Human Development report. Both have implications in terms of looking at these two major vectors. So obviously, we are a subset. The textile apparel sector has about 45 million people working in that sector. And we have about 12.9 million people directly in the apparel sector. And if you take a little more of auxiliary industries around it, it's about 19 million people. Attrition rate itself, Mr. J.D. Giri is there. He used to tell us that every month it's like setting up one new factory because of the attrition rate. So that means that the migrant population, which is coming from the farm labor sector, which is shedding labor every year, almost like 10% has come down in the 10 years. From 56, 57%, it is now just about 45, 46%. So obviously there is a lot of migrant population which go back and come in, and there is no stability in terms of the apparel sector. Often the attrition rate is a problem. The technological issue is also linked to the wage. If the wage is too low, the motivation for going for better technology keeps you back. They think that, okay, so much of labor is available. Why should I really go for better labor, better technology? And this is what Professor Hausman, I think, had lamented, that if India wants to reach a 5 trillion economy, and if our economic index is going to go up, your minimum wages also will go up. And that if you are going to put a stop to it, and your export, the FOBs are not increasing from $4 to $5 to a better value-added product, there is going to be a dichotomy. And this needs to be bridged in the apparel textile sector. We need better value-added goods, and therefore value-added skills, which means that you have to reskill the farm labor, you have to reskill in new tools and technology, you have to upskill in terms of productivity and efficiency, you have to have new skill, what ma'am mentioned as IR 4.0, the Industrial Revolution 4.0, as well as the post-COVID pandemic. So there is a lot of challenges before us as I look at it at this point of time. And that is what this particular webinar is focusing on, how we can find some solutions. The solution lies in people who are around us, sitting like Pallab, Mr. Giri, Roshan, Basab, who is finding new employment opportunities. They are the people who are going to find more solutions in terms of getting more people skilled, first of all, right skilled for the right kind of technological environment which is emerging. And the kind of job losses which are happening are not really the real job losses. It is about some new jobs being created. But are we having those skills to, like environment engineer or a data analyst or fashion trend analyst for the digital e-commerce is supposed to reach 200 billion. So do we have people for that in terms of the training which is required for that? So you need to now find the one side, the opportunities, and the other side, the skills required, and how we can find this Indian youth to, and is also women especially, because women's participation is slipping. It's just about 16-17% now. So if it does not go up, the economy cannot increase. That is what has happened in Vietnam, Cambodia, Bangladesh. The women employment percentage has jumped, the economy grew. And our women participation is slipping, which is a very, very serious matter. So I would just like to leave it at that, and hope that we will cover these points as we go along.
Thank you, Dr. Koshy. You very well said that India, if India has to move on the value expansion or value addition, if we are looking for better value realization for our garments, we also need to have value added skills. Thanks a lot. Now I'd like to have Mr. Devendra Gupta ji. Devendra ji, looking from the perspective of global buyers, with the closure of so many retailers and brands, what is the current assessment of jobs in apparel sector? And what is the perspective for skills training program in terms of new compliances, standards, and expectations from the brands? Devendra ji.
First of all, thank you for inviting me to be part of this illustrious panel. I'm really, let's say, humbled to be part of such illustrious group. Lots to learn from everyone. And so far, whatever I have heard and, what has been shared, it's really very invigorating. It really makes us feel that, we have a lot of future, especially for Indian youth. Coming to, the question which you asked, I think we can clearly see that there was already too much of a oversupply, to be honest, in the apparel industry. Like, I don't know how much of us really know, but 30% of the product which is on the shelf never gets sold. So we were already struggling with the oversupply, which was actually resulting in a lot of markdowns. People were very weak financially. They were just standing. They were just surviving. So the way we look at it is that the COVID situation has actually is going to make the industry become much, much more stronger. We can already see that the people who are the right people in terms of what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, sustainability, traceability, and all those things, they are really doing well. I mean, we have had some customers who have had their best quarters, actually, during the time of the COVID, because the COVID has helped everyone to whoever was ready to kind of emerge even stronger in this situation. So I think that, the theory of survival of the fittest has really played out. So given that the background, I think definitely there is a dip in the requirement or the perception that the jobs are going to be less. But we're quite hopeful that by the time it is end of 21, the level of the jobs would be back where they were in 2019. In fact, we believe that the market is really going to pick up from 2022. But obviously now, looking at that, we now be talking about what kind of skills are going to be important. So in terms of the skills, we clearly see that one of the most critical skill would be the ability to make everybody understand within our organization the importance of transparency and traceability. The transparency and the traceability has to be ingrained throughout any organization, and that's a skill which everybody needs to learn. Right now we are used to having compliance officers who are taking care of the compliances and all, but everybody has to understand these two parts. The second part, which is going to be very important, is the technology and combination of the process, together with technology. The processes have to become more and more efficient. The only way they can become efficient is by better use of technology. Technology has always been there. People have been talking about it, but very few people have been using. So I think the post-COVID situation has kind of prompted everybody to use the technology. Now it is the question of how do we actually utilize the technology for the right processes and efficient processes. Digitization was always there. Digitization has become even more important. Digital sample creation and all those kind of things will become the way of life in our industry. And I would say that it's eventually whatever skills we are talking about, they have not really changed. It's just that the priority of what skills we need to be focusing on has changed dramatically. And if all the organizations start to look at it from that point of view, we will see there would be a right approach towards skilling of the people at every level, whether it be the workers, whether it be the senior management, middle management, and so on.
Yeah, thank you, Gupta ji. You made 2-3 very important points that companies need to look into the ability of transparency and traceability. And you also mentioned that though technology has always been there, the combination of processes and technology is going to be very important. And the third one, which you said, that skills have always been there, but we need to look at what skills are priority as of now and what is our focus. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I'd like to move to my next panelist, JD Giriji. Giriji, being one of the largest exporters of apparel, what are the specific challenges you faced and are facing during these COVID times? And how have you planning to overcome this, or how have you overcome this? You have been implementing PACE program with the gap on soft and life skills. How important are these two in today's scenario? Giriji, please.
Yeah. Thank you so much for giving the opportunity, Dr. Koshy and yourself, and then it's a great pleasure to be a part of this esteemed panelist. I also want to thank Panda ji. He has been instrumental in taking us to Odisha. Normally, it is very difficult for the industry to move, to interior parts, but then he has been inspiring us, and with his inspiration, we have gone there, and beautiful things that we have created over there. The idea was, first we used to bring workers from the interior part to our factories in Bangalore. But now the factories are going back to the places where the workers are available. So I think this is the great change, which we have to witness. Coming back to the questions, what are the COVID time challenges and how we have overcome those challenges? The challenges are multifold. I mean, when the COVID lockdown was declared, everything came to a screeching halt. I mean, we were confined to our places, workers were not able to move out, the factories were closed, and it was really a period which was traumatic, for everybody as such, And the COVID, of course, it brought a lot of, pessimism, the deaths and devastation and disruption. This was the fallout of COVID. And it was very, very difficult to come out of that situation. But slowly, then once, we were allowed to open the factories, it was also not very easy kind of a decision, because when we were allowed to open the factories, we were allowed not with the full strength. We were allowed only with 50% strength or 70% strength for much longer. During that period, we were, during the COVID period, we were asked that we can work only for manufacture of your PPEs or manufacture of your mask. And we took that opportunity and we were manufacturing PPEs as well as in a mask during that period, so that the workers, they are coming to the factory, and then with all the precautions, we used to run the factories for some time. But then it was really an ordeal, to convince the government authorities, because the passes which are to be used, because most of the workers will be traveling even from Delhi. So Delhi, Delhi to Faridabad, again, they were stopped on the way that you can't go, or, vice versa. So those situations were there, but then we have overcome those kind of situations. And in fact, now let me come to the point that how COVID has affected us. Now, COVID affected not only us, it affected the manufacturers of the industry, it affected the workers, and affected the brands as such. Now, as far as we are concerned, I mean, you can just imagine the situation where the shipments are ready and we were not able to move out to the ports. You can imagine the situations where some of the shipments are on the way to the port, but they were stopped on the way and they were not allowed to move further. And there were certain instances where the drivers didn't have money, I mean, to spend, for their food and other things. And they were also stranded, but, it was necessary that time, because everything has got to be prevented. There was a choice, either life or livelihood. But then subsequently, we moved on from there to, I mean, we want life as well as, livelihood as such, When during that time, the buyers, they were also, under a lot of stress. They told us, you stop, shipping the goods. They hold the shipment. I mean, they asked us to hold the shipments, for some time. The orders which were running, we were asked to stop those orders. There was, of course, the buyers, they themselves were also facing a lot of difficulties, as Mr. Devendra also has said, that the warehouses were full and there were no uptakes from the other the consumers dried up, and basically the focus of the consumers went from the fashion or the garments to meeting their daily needs, groceries and whatever the daily needs are. That is what they were buying, and they were not buying any this thing. This is the report which we got, and which was actually factually correct. The money, again, cash was the king, and cash dried up. So it was very difficult to pull out, through that kind of situation. And then we had a lot of negotiations with the bank, with the buyers also. Most of the times, the payments were delayed, or payments, there were negotiations about the discounts and all that. So it was a situation where we had to hold each other's hands. And then, of course, it depends again on your relations with the buyers. And then some buyers, even they came forward and they said that they will be funding the salaries of the workers. I mean, for some of the things, so which was very nice thing. Some of the buyers, of course, they said that, well, we are you are on your own, we are on our own, that kind of a situation. But ultimately, because of the relations as such, we came together. There was a need to build the trust bank. The buyers have to have trust in us. We also have to trust in them. And our workers also have to trust in us. During that period, the government told me that we have to pay the wages, for the lockdown period. And most of the people, they were thinking that when there is no work, when there is no cash, how can we pay, these wages as such? But we at Shahi, we paid the wages during that period because again, we have that kind of this thing into relations with our workers because they are also members of the Shahi family as such. So when they are in trouble, we have to come to their rescue, and all the time they are also with us, and because of them, we also exist. This is the feeling that we have got. So this is in nutshell, how what was the situation during the COVID time, and slowly we have to come out of that thing. If you can see the shipments which were affected during the month of April, our shipment went down by 90%. In April, it was 60%. Now, of course, overall, if you compare this time shipments with the earlier, last year's the same period, now we are again still, down by 30%. Of course, we have 4 months time left out, and then we'll be in a position to make up. So at least we'll be in a position to have the the turnover what we had last year as such. Now coming to the point of pace. Pace, of course, is we have been talking about the hard skills as such. Hard skills are very, very important, but at the same time, the soft skills, they are also important. When we talk about the technology, when we talk about various kinds of things which are coming in the market, we are focusing on that. But the inner technology or inner engineering, what is required is also equally important. No amount of outside technology will take you to a longer kind of this thing, the journey as such. And it is a journey where we have to go from one end to another end. And in this journey, if you are equipped with the life skills, and then your journey becomes very, very smooth. Now coming back to the PACE, of course, we have been pioneers in implementing PACE. This is the GAPS proprietary program, which we had been running since 2007. And this program didn't come suddenly. We were 4 partners: GAP, Shahi, then Swasthi is another partner, that's the NGO from Bangalore, and ICRW, that is International Center for Research on Women, is a Washington-based organization. So all 4 of us, had deliberated a lot in creating this program. And this is such a powerful program. Under this program, we have certified about 40,000 female workers. Now, of course, this program, initially it started with Shahi on a pilot basis. Now this program is being run in 17 other countries also. And this has become a very, very popular kind of a program. In fact, Bill Clinton, he said there are 5 ideas which can transform the world. And he said PACE is one of those ideas. So this is the kind of a power of this program. And I'll tell you shortly what it covers basically. It covers your communication, which is very, very important. It covers time and stress management. It covers problem solving, decision making. It covers execution excellence. It covers WASH, that is water, hygiene, sanitation. It covers that, then financial literacy, legal literacy, and social entitlement. If you are equipped with this kind of knowledge, you are totally transformed. And if you are transferred, then it becomes very easy. You are becoming more responsible. Your attrition has gone down because of this. Your absenteeism has gone down because of this. Your punctuality has improved, and your productivity also has gone up. Productivity without telling them that you have to increase the product. This program is not for increasing the productivity. It's the self kind of this thing, empowerment program. And with this, we have witnessed several times and several studies, a 10 to 12% productivity has gone up. So this is the kind of a program. And then many other companies, they are also, Pearl is also implementing it. And then various other organizations, they are implementing it. Of course, I know that there is a time constraint, so that I will not take it this thing, but this is a very powerful program. Hard skills with soft skills, you become perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Giriji. And you very rightly narrated the painful story coming out of COVID crisis. The entire world has struggled out of this, or still struggling out of this. And you made very important point regarding PACE, which I'll come back to you with the follow-up question, that how PACE can help entire Indian apparel industry. So I'd like to move to Mr. Basab. Mr. Basab Banerjee. He has to leave little early, right?
Yes. Where is Basab? Has he gone?
Hello. Yeah.
Basab must have left, or?
He is not he's not to be seen. So I guess
Okay.
he's left. I'll call
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
Should I call him and follow?
Yeah, it's okay in case he has left here.
Yeah, I'll just check with him. Yeah. Till then, Sanjay sir, you can continue with the next speaker.
Yeah.
I'll check with.
Sarada ji.
Yeah. Our public and private ITIs have not lived up to the expectations of playing a more effective role in skill development. What ails the system? Are there good examples of success, etc., to be mentioned? You have played a major role in apprenticeship and champion employer approaches. Why that apprenticeship is not taking off in India?
Thank you, Sanjay ji, and thank you, Dr. Koshy, for inviting to this webinar. Sanjay ji, let us look at the ITIs historically. You know, after about 300 years of British rule, the industry was destroyed. There was nothing when we got independence in 1947. And government was very keen that we start our building up our nation. And industry was one which came to their mind that we should do our manufacturing, we should do our industry development. And in the wake of that effort, 1950, the first 50 set of ITIs were set up by Government of India in the country. And they were, so important at that time that many of these ITIs have been inaugurated by the Prime Minister himself. He personally used to go there and inaugurate them. And they really served the purpose for which they were set up. Basically, they were set up to provide the trained manpower for the manufacturing industry. And in 1969, there was a National Development Council decision which transferred all these ITIs to the state governments. Earlier, they were set up by the central government, and they were good funding. They were all very well equipped. The courses were newly developed. So they performed very well. And they performed till almost about 2003, 2004. Because the Indian economy was growing at about 3 to 3.5%. But in the new millennium, when the economy started growing at the rate of about 6, 7, or 8%, then there was crunch of the trained manpower. And I recollect that in 2004, when the new UPA government had come into existence, Mr. Chidambaram was holding his pre-budget meeting with the industrialists, in which Mr. Ratan Tata, he raised this issue that, Mr. Minister, your ITIs have served us well in the last 50 years, but now they are all old. The course curriculum has not changed. The technology has changed in the industry, but they have not changed. And therefore, you need to do something about your ITIs. And that is how the efforts of modernizing the ITIs started in 2004. We took up the first 100 ITIs in 2004-05 at a cost of about 160 crores. Then next year, we took up another 400 with the World Bank assistance. It was at that point of time the biggest intervention by the World Bank to provide 180 million credit, 180 million US dollars credit, and all these ITIs were modernized. And but then this covered only 500. We had about 1369 ITIs, and therefore I requested Mr. Chidambaram that give us resources so that we can modernize all our ITIs. So he was very generous. He gave us something like 3,500 crores of rupees for modernization of these ITIs. But dynamics of industry is such that your manufacturing practices keep changing every day. But if you don't change your institutions at the same speed, then they lag behind. So what is the ITIs today is that their course curriculum are outdated, their machines are outdated, the training of trainers does not take place according to the newest requirements. And the most important is the centrality of the industry. Employers have to be at the central place. If the employers are not involved, then the training will not take place according to their requirement. And therefore, the government made effort not only to modernize. Now I believe the government has started seeking industry interface. They have taken up about 400 ITIs. They are signing MOUs with the industry so that they can have, kind of focused approach to meet the requirement of those particular industries. Unfortunately, we have spread out. Earlier there were a very small number of ITIs. Now today we have about 15,000 ITIs in the country, and they are in all nooks and corners of the country. But actually, ITI should be located where industries are located. But ultimately, what you are doing, you are meeting the requirement of the industry. And until the industry is there, so whatever effort you make will be futile. And therefore, I believe now the government has started what is known as dual system of training, where the theoretical training will take place in the ITI and the practical training will take place in the industry. This is the model which is followed by Germany, and Germany has been doing it since 1683 AD. So it is very long tradition, and that has been borrowed by many of the European countries, particularly the Western Europe and Japan, South Korea, etc., which has been very, very successful. Ultimately, it is the employer who is the king and who actually needs the skill manpower. And therefore, his involvement right from the beginning in the course curriculum design, in setting up these institutions, in training up trainers, in their apprenticeship training, all has to take place with the help of the industry. Unfortunately, industry in India has not been so proactive. Unlike Germany or Japan or South Korea or even China, where the employers take very leading role. Now, you talked about the apprenticeship training. The apprenticeship training which is being done in Germany, actually it is the dual system of training where the learner, the trainee spends about 1 or 2 days in the vocational school and remaining 3-4 days of the week in the industry to really do whatever he has learned in the vocational school. And this is kind of blended training where the theoretical training as well as the practical training takes place simultaneously. Unfortunately, we separated here in India. ITIs were doing theoretical training and apprenticeship training was on the job training. What is actually required is that industry has to come forward. Unfortunately, there has been a kind of trust deficit between the industry and the government. Industry has been feeling that government is trying to regulate or control them, and therefore they have not really been taking that kind of interest in training the manpower. What is important is that industry should be in the driver's seat. They should be in the central place, and training should be run around their requirement. They should be involved in the framing of course curriculum. They should be required in practical training or apprenticeship training, and then only it can happen. But somehow things have started looking up. Government started what is called NAPS, National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme. But there also, it is again more regulated than given freedom to the employers to choose. They need to select trainees according to their requirement. The number should not be fixed that you have to employ so many apprentices. And until the centrality of the employer is kept in mind, the system is not going to work. And therefore, I think what we need to do is to involve the industry closely in all aspects of training. Then only things can improve. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, Sharda Prasad ji. I would also put a follow-up question to this. As you just narrated, that the German model which was being tried, somehow it has not worked so well in India because there is some kind of trust deficit between Indian industry and the government. What is the way forward? How should the industry or the government come together to revitalize the same concept?
There is again a historical perspective. when the dual system of training started in Germany, there were no democracies. They were all monarchies. And therefore, if the industry, during the Industrial Revolution, if they had to really grow, then they will have to do their own skill development. And that is how the system of chambers of commerce and industry started there in Germany. And they became the focal point. They adopted the course curriculum. They set up these training institutions, vocational schools, and they trained their manpower in their establishments. And that is how they have been doing it, and they still do that. But unfortunately here, government was keen that industry should develop, and therefore they started setting up these ITIs. While in Germany, it happened in a different manner. The institutions of training were set up by the industry itself. And you'll be surprised that even today, the German system spends something like 35 billion euros in training every year. 35 billion euros, if you convert into Indian rupees, it comes to something like 2,32,000 crores of rupees per annum. It is mind-boggling. I mean, you just can't think of that kind of amount in India, while the German population is just about 82 million. And they are spending so much money. And 80% of that money comes from the industry, not from the government. Governments are only doing the vocational training in the schools, both central government as well as landers, that is the state governments. But hands-on training is done in the industry, and that is entirely the prerogative of the industry and the industry chambers. Another thing which is different in Germany is that these institutions have been located where the industry is located. They are not divorced from industry because they were to meet the requirement of the industry, and therefore they are in the same vicinity. The chambers also, according to the geographical location, not according to the, every state should have one chamber or something. They are according to the geographical location. And that is how, they develop the course curriculum. Then government notifies it through legislation. And then it is followed by all the industry uniformly. Then the assessment and certification, that is also done by chambers. It is not done by the government at all. Here, unfortunately, the government has taken a big responsibility. And government, when it takes up the responsibility, there are pitfalls here and there. And the employer does not have that kind of involvement and that kind of interest. Similar is the model which is being followed by South Korea. South Korea did one very small intervention. It's again a small country of 50 million population. But if you go to the World Olympics of skills, most of the prizes are won by the South Koreans. Why? Because they have something like 96 to 98% skilled manpower. Only one small intervention which has been made by the government is that every industry in South Korea will employ only skilled manpower. And if they don't employ, if the person is not trained, if they are employing some untrained person, he has to be trained. And they, charge 1% of the wage bill of that company. It is to be deposited into the skill fund. And out of that, they can avail the government facility or they can do any private sector facility, but they have to skill that person. Without skilling, they can't take it. And that is why their level of skill development, no other country in the world has that kind of thing. Even Germany has something like 80%. UK has less than that, 75%. And other countries are in that range. But South Korea has done 96 to 98% just because of this small 1% levy from the employers for training manpower. Training, skilling, reskilling, upskilling, and that is compulsory for every industry. And that is how they have been doing. So if we want to do it, I think the first suggestion I would like to make is let the government hand over the training to the industry. It should not regulate, it should only regulate. It should not be, the implementer of it. Because government has its limitation, whether it is the state government or central government, they have their own limitation. And it is the industry which best knows what kind of skill they require, what kind of course curriculum they require, what the kind of technology which is coming, and according to that technology, what is the kind of manpower they need, and therefore they will frame the course curriculum accordingly, and they will train the trainers accordingly. They will train the manpower accordingly. They will provide hands-on training in their establishments. All that has to go hand in hand. And if industry leads that, if they are in the driver's seat, then I think they will do the best. And that has to come by and by. When I was chairman of this committee, I recommended that let us introduce the levy system. Of course, government has not agreed to that. Levy system, just 1% of levy. If you are paying money, then you would like value for that money. And if you are not paying money, then you are not involved. You are, a kind of observer or spectator. And that is what has happened. And if we really want to make a difference in our system, my suggestion would be that let the industry take the leading part. Government can facilitate it. Government can support it. Government can catalyze it. But let the industry run it. If you want to run it, then it is difficult. For the government, it is very difficult. It can't really do the justice to the job which has been assigned to itself by the government.
Thank you, Sharda Prasadji. We understand that your suggestion is that industry should come into the driver's seat, where government can only act as a facilitating body. And definitely we'll come back to Giriji and others who are part of industry, that what it takes for industry to be proactive to reach to that level. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Since Basabji is not there, I guess, so I'll go to Dilip Chenoyji.
Yes, sir, Dilip, I tried calling him, but he didn't take my call. So.
Okay.
He had some family emergency, it seems. Yeah. Okay.
Dilip ji, you having played a major role in the concept of sectoral skill councils, and also you have authored a paper especially on the skill development efforts in the manufacturing sector. Are there enough jobs being created, and is the gap between employable skills and employability coming down? Dilip ji.
No, thank you, Sanjay ji, for that question. First of all, like to welcome and just say it's great pleasure to be amongst such an illustrious group here. I've been listening to all of the comments made earlier, and I think a lot of very valid points have been made. So, to answer your question and say that there are enough jobs for people in India would be a fallacy. The facts on the ground are there are jobs without people and people without jobs. So if you look at that scenario, and then what we need to do here is what we need to address. And now pre-COVID and post-COVID, the situation has actually changed. Of course, even pre-COVID, we were talking about Industry 4.0 and how skills are going to be changing. But post-COVID, and as Mr. Giri had also talked about when he was actually talking earlier, if you were to say that his exports are 30% down, and obviously it would have impacted manpower also within the organization. Maybe his organization has kept the manpower on and they're training them and hoping for good times. But other organizations have been unable to carry the people who are in jobs with them, both blue collar and white collar. There are CMI reports saying that unemployment rates and a lot of people, a huge number of migrant workers have gone back to states. States are trying to train the migrant workers and actually ensure that they get jobs. So now if you take the context of jobs without people and people without jobs, right? Then you have to look at it differently. Sharda Prasadji very eloquently, traced the history of Germany and the monarchy of Germany, and Daly Koshy was intervening with a word called guilds. But people forget that India has a rich tradition. India had trainees, right? And the trainees, and this is a very ancient thing. And if you did not get trained or were not put as an apprentice in the trainee system, right, you actually could not enter that profession. It's a very age-old tradition in India, and even in modern day India, it is continuing, and we tend to ignore it. It is only known as the Chartered Accountants Institution of India or the Institution of Cost and Works Accountants. No university or no entity can give you a certificate. You have to do mandatory articleship for a certain amount of time before you become a chartered accountant. And the only difference is that it has been enabled by an act of Parliament, and you actually go through. So the idea of getting, and Mr. Shadar Prasad also referred to the intervention of Ratan Tata in that meeting, and then of course his view on how it should go forward. So I think there are 4 issues as far as jobs and people are concerned. Given the lack of academia and training institution interaction with industry, there was no signaling available for the academic institutions or the training institutions what type of skills are required by people. If you go back, maybe to 2010, 11, 12, right? At that point of time, the number of trades in the ITIs was actually limited. The number of programs, skill development programs run in the CBSE system were also limited. And then it was found that there are a variety of other jobs for which people are not skilled. Of course, there was a reference earlier about the Human Development Index and how the percentage of people in India have skilled has been going up. But the challenge was there's no signaling. So you had to actually develop a set of competencies that people require. And competency is much more than skill. It is the attitude, it is the knowledge and skill. And there were no competency frameworks. And therefore, industry actually had to provide competency frameworks. And earlier, this was tried out in NASSCOM. And they had actually developed a test and all that. But the challenge was that industry only wants to hire the best, right? So everybody was, when you go to a management school and everybody wants to be first day, first interview to take away the best, and nobody wants to go second there here. So you have to actually create a system which actually address that going forward. Now, a very short answer to your question, will there be jobs in the future? Yes, there will be jobs in the future, right? Will there be enough jobs in the future? We can't say because today there is light at the end of the tunnel, but you don't know how long the tunnel is there. But will people with the skill sets who operated in firms and organizations yesterday, will they be able to carry out the same jobs tomorrow? A definite answer is no. If you look at a lot of the skills that are required, you look at what we in this call had to do. I can guarantee you 9 months ago, none of us did more than one Skype call, if at all, in a month or a week. Today we handle multiple, multiple platforms and multiple calls going forward. And initially, everybody used to talk about the 4 C's, whether it is communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. Right now, the thing is to be tech savvy, to ability to understand technology is a very important tool going forward, and we have to actually enable that to happen. The second thing is that earlier we all worked together and we worked there, so collaboration and teamwork is important. But today, in a work from home situation, which is going to become normal going forward, individual leadership skills are going to be very much in focus when we look at that there, and also the ability to forecast, right, which was never thought about as a skill before. These 3 critical skills are coming up and will be required from everyone, right? I mean, just to say that in the current situation, right, even the person who delivers a e-commerce package to you has to have the ability to be able to forecast, right? What if the DND is open now and DND is closed today because of the agitation? How do I get there? He has to be able to use Google Maps to be able to look at alternate routes and everything. So the type of things that are happening in real time, what is required is dramatically changing. A lot of people believe that the number of jobs will decrease because of the introduction of things like artificial intelligence and robotics and things like that. Yes, some jobs will disappear, some jobs will morph, but a huge new number of new jobs will be created. The same conversations were held when electricity came up, when the printing press was discovered, when computers were going to put into the banking system. We've actually been through this, and we see that there's a huge opportunity for us to create different forms of employment or different forms of economic activity going forward. In India, the opportunities are immense, right? It is for us as industry and as people there to share these opportunities with everybody and to ensure that they can be part of the constructive development system. You heard two versions of textiles, right? But at the same time, there are a lot of textile companies, a lot of chemical companies who actually are employing more people now, right, than they did before the lockdown. Andrews mentioned, because they pivoted their businesses to make things that were required from import dependence of masks and PPEs. We are now doing 20 to 30 million a month exports, right? Fine. What happens after the pandemic and what happens then, that's a separate issue that we need to actually address there. How do we make it sustainable? But it's created a lot of jobs in the country, and opportunities will exist. The new PLI schemes and other schemes announced by government is expected to create new manufacturing opportunities over the next 1 to 3 years. It's 2 lakh crores. The new investment in the national infrastructure investment pipeline is also expected to create new jobs and new employment opportunities. And therefore, you will see always a balance. It's not every sector can grow at X% consistently for 2 to 3 years. Every business has a cycle, and some are contra-cyclical, some are different. But I think overall, if there are skilled people available, they will not only find jobs in India, but they will find jobs overseas. I know that Basab was to focus on the overseas bit, so I was not talking about that. But I think even Ms. Sanghi talked about India making the skill capital of the world. In the healthcare sector, we already have a collaboration going with UAE for now people to be there. That discussion is being held. Just day before was the Waterfalls initiative. And there are many, many people across the world. In the next 1 or 2 months, there's going to be a disruption. The disruption is going to be because this year, those people who were in final year or the third year were actually managed to finish the exams or do something. But a lot of people currently in their final year who are not able to do the classes, their calendars will be disruptive. There'll be a huge challenge going forward. So that's all I want to say at this time. But thank you for this opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you, Dilip ji. Your initial line was the most interesting, and rest all your narration has been around that itself, that jobs without people and people without job. So I'll ask you the follow-up question now itself. Do you really see hope when your line says that there is a clear mismatch between the talent or the skill available and the type of skills required? In this fast changing world, when technology is changing so fast and the requirements are changing so fast, can we really keep the pace matching the jobs and the skill at this level? What is the way forward, or can we really match that?
Yeah, thank you, Sanjay ji, for that question. So if we follow the traditional models of skill development, it's not going to happen. One thing which the lockdown has taught us, right? I mean, if there had no lockdown, and we are saying that we can do virtual classrooms and we can do a virtual blending of virtual and physical, I mean, we would have been thrown out of the room. They said, what have you eaten and come, or right? In the West, they said in the West they will say, what have you smoked and come into the meeting? Here there were other actors, but one thing that the pandemic has actually taught us is that you can do a blend of physical and digital. Hybrid. Shadar Prasad ji in his address talked about theory in the ITIs and practicals in the companies. When we were talking about the construction sector, in the 2010, 2011 and saying that they can do the theory in class and do the construction thing at the site, they said, what nonsense. Okay, how can it be done? You have to do the training and all, and we need a classroom and we need a physical infrastructure there. So the first thing is that there's going to be a hybrid. The second thing, which actually the stage is set in India, although we don't know it, is that it's going to be an era of micro degrees. You're going to eat small bites and bits, and you're going to accumulate learning, right? And it's going to be 24/7 learning. Very few training institutions or very few educational institutions actually offer 24/7. If you go to the New South Wales Institute in Sydney, they have a bouquet of courses, right? They have night courses, they have weekend courses, they have once a month courses. You take it, you can accumulate your credits, and it is a little more outcome focused than income input focused. So you're going to have the ability for micro credits to be accumulated and people to be trained. And people will come for very specialized upskilling courses and inputs for specialized sectors. And to enable that to happen, as Mr. Koshy's famous acronym of RUN, reskill, upskill, and new skill. The reskill and upskill is going to be, going to be dramatically changing, and it's not going to be either or. It's going to be R plus U plus N, or R plus U or U plus N, or a combination of those things, all geared towards a competency that is required from within the employer, right? And the final point is in this is that the best thing is that you have to do lifelong learning and the ability to learn, the learnability to learn, which are two new things which are going to come up in this area as we go forward. So I think that's what's going to happen in the future. The ecosystem or the governance of this system has to enable it, because if it is not enabled, then people will go outside the system and do it, and the ability to have one nation, one standard, one cohesive system will go away.
Wither away.
Thank you, Dilip ji. Very interesting line. Learnability to learn. A good message there. I like to go to now Roshan ji. He is Director, Paragon Apparel. During Corona times, as we understand, you have gone into big time manufacturing of PPE and other medical products like masks and others on one hand, and on the other hand, you have been pushing MMF, showing a lot of adaptability and flexibility as an entrepreneur. Can you summarize on the challenges involved in sustaining with such system and further expanding job creation and imparting new skills for the new normal? Roshan ji.
Hello everyone. Thank you for having me here. Thank you, Dr. Koshy, to have me here in such an illustrious panel here. So to come to the first point, when there was sudden lockdown announced in India, the only way we could run the factory was to start making PPE kits. So fortunately for us, our factory is closed for only 4 to 5 days. And from a sportswear manufacturer, we converted ourselves to PPE kit mask manufacturers. So it was the need of the hour. It was need for India. And that's how we tried to just convert our stitching factories to making PPE kits. So when we see the challenges, when we hear about the jobs, how jobs are required. So what we require today is multi-skilled workers. What we have seen in the past, that adaptability to the new normal is very important. As soon as we do it, our competencies increase. So what we feel is that if this multi-skilled operators, if the skill set can keep adapting itself to different technologies, different environments, there will never be shortage of job or job creations. So what we see, like if for an example, when we are a knitwear manufacturing, sportswear manufacturing company. And we had to suddenly convert ourselves to making PPE kits, which are made on non-woven fabrics. And there was a huge requirement of seam sealing machines. So our workers had to immediately change their way of stitching, and they had to adapt to the new world, which was the post or the COVID world. So what we see here is, as we go ahead with skilling or reskilling, or we encourage more skilling, we see a lot of importance of multi-skilled labor. And what we have also done is, now since the business has bounced back completely, and because of pandemic, the whole new medical textile piece has developed in India, completely new. And so we don't want to lose that edge again. So now we are running sportswear during daytime, and a lot of PPE kits being manufactured at the night time. So it is we are trying to create a whole new area of job creation in India, which was medical textiles. So coming back to this, I'll be honest with you. What has happened in India is, when we talk about, Mrs. Sanghi had talked about man-made fiber and the PLI which government has given to the man-made fiber textiles. It is you'll be surprised to know that 55% of world trade happens in man-made fiber, and India is simply vacant. We don't do anything in this category. So this whole category is available for India to develop, to progress, to create a skill set who can handle these kind of products. So synthetic products are more slippery, so we need a skill set. We need people working on this skill set. And the other thing is, it's the sportswear and athleisure category, which is majorly made out of man-made fiber, has seen significant growth in the post-COVID area. The only category in fashion industry which is still growing is the athleisure and the sportswear category. And India is completely missing out on that category. We are one of the few people who make this product. A very small example, if I go with this product to a customer in Europe or US, most of them tell me, oh, we didn't know that India did this kind of a product also. So this is where our focus needs to come in. We need to create...
Roshan, you are vertically integrated also, backward. You have your own fabric and,
Yeah, so over the years, we have created a vertical integrated sportswear manufacturing capability out of India, which is unique for anybody. We don't have any other player who has done something like this. So again, I'm coming back to this, that jobs opportunities will always be there and they will be growing. It's only us that we have to adapt to what is happening in the world and capitalize on some things which are available and we are not looking at it. So as far as skill sets are provided, today also I run a very medium kind of an enterprise, and today also we still feel that we don't have the right kind of checkers available. We still feel that there is an opportunity in having a right kind of checker or a operator also today. So there is a training required. So whatever all workforce we get from outside, we retrain them, because our products are slightly different from what is the market doing right now. The polyesters what we make are very thin fabrics, slippery fabrics, and we retrain all the workers we get into our factory and train them to work on man-made fiber. And honestly, in the last 8 months, there has not been a single cancellation in orders for sportswear business, and it is increasing. And the kind of business what we do today, we have a mix of online players, we have a mix of international market, Indian market. So making garments for these different categories, I don't think there will be a drop in business or drop in job creations. It's just that the industry needs to focus on areas where there is opportunity and where we have to create specific skill set for those opportunities. I think that's what I want to say.
Excellent.
Roshan ji, excellent. You have done very well. I will say that first, your category itself is quite different than what India does as a sportswear and athleisure. Then second thing, very fast adaptability. You changed to medical textiles, PPE and all, where India did not have any production capability in that. You are producing masks also. And third, as you just said that you are operating 24 hours in the day shift, you are into athleisure and sportswear activity, and in the night you are looking into PPE and medical products. I would, from the industry point of view, I would say that where do you find challenge? Why our apparel industry cannot, the entire apparel industry cannot look into similar kind of expansion or flexibility working or adaptability? Where do you feel for an industry there is a challenge? Is it in the skill sets, or is it in the mindset, or there are certain other things?
So first thing is the mindset. Actually, skills can be developed, but mindsets are very difficult to change. So I think changing mindsets, adaptability, creating infrastructure to get into a certain product is the most critical thing right now here. So because I was not getting the right fabric for sportswear, so I had to set up a fabric mill to get the right. So we tied up with a Korean company and got technicians from Korea to set a fabric mill for sportswear. So these are the kind of path-breaking things you need to do to create a product which is inherently not Indian. And that is what we have done over the years. And once you do that, obviously there is teething problems. Obviously there is a gestation period to all this. But if you create a capability which is world class, and world is buying this product from other countries, it's not that you're creating a product which is new for the world. The world is already buying this product out of other countries, and most of the other countries are surviving on these kind of products. So for us to get into it is we need to change our mindset. We need to come out of our cotton based products mindset, most of the industry, and look at avenues which is not declined in the COVID times also. And I was reading somewhere day before yesterday, Adidas online sales have jumped 93%. We see Nike sales jumping, and Lululemon, the biggest yoga wear company in the world, has the highest share prices I think it has ever had. So if you see these kind of companies which are doing so well, why are we not getting into this space? Why are we not investing it? Government has rightly done it. Government has now, Ms. Sanjay has said that we are already 10,000 crores have been allocated to this sector. I think now the industry will start looking at it.
Excellent. Yeah.
Thank you, Roshanji. A very positive approach. That means we can do it, provided we should have a mindset for it. Thanks a lot. I'll come to now Mr. Pallab Banerjee, our last panelist for the day. Pallabji, your company has global operations. How do you see job creation and skill development challenges in Vietnam, Cambodia, Bangladesh as compared to India? What way these countries have coped with the COVID times, and what way are the prospects moving now? Why India is still lagging behind in productivity and speed in execution? Pallabji.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, Dr. Koshy, for giving me a chance to just listen to all these experts and such beautiful leadership that we have in our country. So coming straight to the point, because I think we're quite late, what I found in Vietnam was definitely during that COVID time, I think the problems were same, whether it was Vietnam, Bangladesh, and we are in Indonesia. So all these four countries had similar kind of problem that there were huge cancellations and goods had to be held or goods has to be stopped at each of the locations. So that was common to all the countries. the discipline, the COVID discipline that had to be brought in, that was needed for each and every location. So definitely the workforce responded to the new way of working, the social distancing and all the health and hygiene. So that had to be done everywhere. What I found was the adaptability at different location was different. Definitely the Vietnam was by far the best. Indonesia followed after that, and even Bangladesh also caught up very quickly. India is a much more diversified country. Like we had a longer lockdown. So we started putting this thing full-fledged in place only in about May and June, because before that only the PPE kit was allowed to, and also we are supposed to work only at 30% level. So that definitely these other countries had got that age because of their smaller size maybe, as well as the locations are much more focused in terms of each of these countries where the industry is there. So that way, I think the COVID bounce back that happened in Vietnam and Bangladesh was much faster compared to what we experienced in India. But simultaneously, if I look at the order or you know the geopolitical situation that was happening simultaneously with COVID, where China migration and the pressure on other countries was coming in. So where these countries, the kind of ecosystem that they had for our industry is much more developed. So naturally, a bigger share, a bigger pie went to those two countries before us. I mean, the Vietnam and Bangladesh in this case. And Vietnam is almost, I think, now exporting, I think this particular year till the first half, I think it was neck to neck with China, the apparel exports that happened to US. So that definitely tells us like how that company or that countries like, you know, immediately adapted to the changes that was needed. In terms of workforce, when you ask me that, like, you know, what kind of skills and what kind of people, what I find in countries like Indonesia and Vietnam and also in Bangladesh over the last couple of decades, is there's a huge hunger for the learning, for earning more. I think with the kind of social changes that has happened across the globe, where due to the mobile and internet, people are looking at many things of the world, and the desire to quickly leapfrog yourself to have those positions or have that kind of knowledge base is quite high. And same thing we are seeing in India also. I won't say that India is lacking on it, but I think because of the size and of the diversification, so there are different kind of challenges out here, which Bangladesh, if you look at the industry, I think 90% of the industry is in a, you know, how many, maybe 30 or 40 square kilometer area of Dhaka. That's where the entire, if you look at it, the majority of the industry is there in Bangladesh. And same if you look at Vietnam also, it's basically either Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh or another one location. So between three locations, they have almost very high density. So the way they could move and was definitely very different. The requirement, as we have heard from the other industry specialists like Devinder and Roshan and of course Mr. Giri, is that definitely there's a huge change that has happened. Every decade we find that the demand or the need for the workforce or the skills that is needed is completely different. What we saw in the 90s, what we saw in the 2000s, and what we saw in the 2010 to 20 and 24 would be very, very different. So that's something very important, the soft skills, because the mind has to be opened. The desire is opening very fast. That how do you make yourself to learn? And India also, one very typical challenge that I find compared to the other countries is a lot of first time workforce, like coming from the entire family, the people who are coming to the factory, they might be the first time they're working in a factory or industry. So it's not only like, you know, learning a skill, but also from the home culture or like the time discipline, communication, way of communicating with various levels of people that is there in the working culture. So those things become extremely important. Then comes, like as Roshan was just mentioning, like, you know, we need to change. We're not doing one kind of operation now, but various kind of operations. So 3-4 years back, like when I was in the sourcing world and when I was sourcing from a city of Porto in Portugal, I find that one worker is handling about 5 or 6 machines. The kind of skill level is completely different compared to what we have seen in the third world countries, like where more of assembly line production, where each operations has to be like each person has to really know that operations. So that if we go from 2010 to 2020, that kind of demand is coming up. The advantage that some of these countries like Bangladesh or Vietnam or even India, like what we had about 20 years back, was we had the advantage of cost compared to the production that is happening in Europe or in US now. With 2020 plus, when we go into that, I think that factor is quite mitigated because of the technology, because of the robotics, because of all the automation that has happened. So again, the workforce which is coming at the lowest level also have to have a very different kind of skill to adapt themselves to multiple operations as soon as possible. In Vietnam, we could change over the factory from woven fabrics where the cutting, the machinery that is required is very different. The skill that is required is very different compared to a knit. Like as Roshan was mentioning, sometimes those sports activewear is very light, thin weight. So to handle that, you need a different kind of skill. So we had to change it overnight and then again flip it back. So now what we are seeing is that week after week, we need to flip. That readiness may not be there in India at this point of time. So when we're talking about this skilling, of course, we heard that industry has to take a lead. And I think 100%, I think that's the only way it can happen. So that kind of, this kind of needs, this kind of thing that is changing, and we have to be like really fast. Why India is lacking behind on the speed? I'm not the expert. I can only share my experience in this last 10 or 20 years, because this is what we are seeing, that a lot of first generation workforce, maybe the kind of skill that has gone into them before they're coming into the work and during the work is not going to help them in this manner. So that has to be quickly rethink, and we have to move ahead to gain that speed. I hope these are the question that you asked.
Yeah. Thank you, Pallabji. You very well narrated that Vietnam, Indonesia, and Bangladesh, because of their hunger and because of hunger to learn and hunger to earn and desire to leapfrog. And India has its limitations because of its size and geographical and too diverse a country. But what is the way forward according to you if India was to catch up in the apparel race? Because all other countries in last few years have been growing in exports where Indian apparel exports have not been growing. What would you suggest the way forward?
My belief would be definitely the industry has to go to where the workforce is. I think that's something we have lacked a little bit in this particular industry, because the kind of population, the size that India has and the potential that we have, we're still very located in only like the Delhi, Gurgaon area or the Bangalore area. So that has started happening only in this last 10 years. Like I'm sure like we have the leaders who have taken the, we have encouraged, and some of the industry leaders have moved ahead. So I think that should be the way forward. And today, I think the infrastructure, the roadways, the transportation is developing in India in a very quick manner. And I think that still is something like we have not really, I think we have not gone to the full potential of it. So that I think should be the way ahead. Again, like I'm not the expert. I think we have better experts to answer this question.
Thank you. Thank you. Industry has to go where the workforce is. That is the message. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Pallabji. In all my first round of questions, few of the panelists I have asked the follow-up question, what is the way forward? But in the earlier question answer sets, I would like to go back. The only limitation and my request is that we are running out of time. We have already stretched ourselves a little too much. So I would request Giriji and Mr. Gupta ji to quickly tell what is the way forward to catch up. Giriji.
Yeah. Basically, there are two things, which we have to do. Of course, whatever the hard skill that we have, it will take you to the door of the factory. But in fact, the soft skills which you have will make you stay over there. So that we have to simultaneously concentrate on the soft skills. This is one part. And what Mr. Pallab was also saying, that the industry has to go to the places where the workers are there, rather than workers coming to the places of cities and all that. Now here, I'll just briefly tell an example. My first meeting with the chief secretary before going to Odisha, and in that meeting, he said, I have no dearth of investment. I have plenty of investment coming to Odisha. But I want you to come because, with the little investment, I am interested in employment. The investment which is coming in the mines and steel and all that, it will generate, 500 crores will generate employment only for 200 people. But you, as a 30 crore investment, you will generate employment for 2,500 people. So I want, that thing to happen, and you should come to our this thing, So after seeing that kind of eagerness, this is how, we were attracted towards Odisha, seeing the mindset. This is one part. And of course, then why we are lagging behind is because of, again, the skilling and upskilling and reskilling. So those kind of the continuous learning is also very, very important. So these are some of the things, which we have to keep in mind. And the industry, of course, the technology is changing every now and then. It is not that whatever we have seen in the past decade is changing very, very fast. But the changes in the textile industry or the garment industry is going to be on a lower scale. Other sectors might be affected much more than what we are. But here also it is creeping in. And the one analysis says that although 80% of our workers are, they are at stake because of the technology which is coming. But availability of the technology and adaptability of the technology, these are two different things, and the economic viability. The cost benefit analysis, once we do it, then at least for 10, 15 years, and we'll continue this, with the same kind of thing, And of course, there are, the historic challenges, and this is the time that all leaders will have to manage the crisis while building the future. And here I recall the famous lines of John Lennon. What he says, there are no problems. There are no problems. There are only solutions. This is what we have to keep in mind, and we have to keep on finding that solution and be optimistic for the future.
Thank you, Giriji. The message is that soft skills will make us sail through. That is one. Secondly, you said, though the technology may be available, but we have to make our choices clear to adopt to that technology, whether that suits in our conditions or not. That is the message. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I will quickly move to Devendra Gupta ji. What is the solution and what is the way forward according to you to catch up with the times? Devendra Gupta ji.
Very clearly, I think we all know that the world wants to work with India. I mean, we've been talking about this for the last 3-4 years. And I think the biggest opportunity which India got was when US under Trump administration started to put sanctions on China. And there was a lot of talk about the business moving to India, but unfortunately it did not happen. It moved to countries like Vietnam. And today Vietnam is more or less at the same level or getting to the same level as China very, very quickly, for a lot of the people business. And I think COVID has given another opportunity, for India to be on the top of the mindset when it comes to moving the business. And if the business moves to India, obviously we are generating more employment, more jobs are getting created. Where I feel that we are again going to lose out will be if we don't really become performers. India is always wearing that tag of somewhere down the line, we just don't perform, for whatever reason. And I think that's where I earlier also mentioned that it is very critical that we make people understand the process and technology has to come together. It has to be the backbone of any organization. And we have to create, again, I mean, you whether you call it soft skill or I would say the attitude of always being above the herd. How do we make sure that we are above the herd? How do we make sure that we are there when the opportunity knocks on the door? Right now, I think we are still in a way of like we're still reacting. We have to become extremely proactive. And that's something which we have to teach to everyone in the organization. If everybody in the organization has that kind of an attitude, we will win for sure. And the generation of employment will happen, skills will automatically develop.
Thank you, Devendra Gupta ji. It is reassuring that world wants to work with India, and COVID itself can throw many opportunities for India, but we must perform. That is the message. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Now, I will go back to Sanjay Panda ji and Sunita madam to quickly suggest us, because both of you have been part of policy making and part of advisory to the government, how we can catch up with the situation and how can really come to the forefront.
Shall I mention first?
Yeah, you can. You start, please. Yeah.
I think it has been very fascinating and educative for me to listen to Pallav and Devendra. You know, I had the opportunity of working with Mr. Giri, but the ideas they put forward is very brilliant. In fact, they are the new generation. My recommendation would be like this. Firstly, industry must, you know, all of us, industry, government, everybody must change their mindset. And like the Sanskrit word tells, that the deer doesn't come if the lion is sleeping. You know, that is the spirit. All of you know that thing. You know, we must change our mindset, both industry and government. For the industry, I think it would be appropriate to think it as a part of CSR. Again, I'll stress, and this we can discuss maybe in a separate forum. CSR is not just 2% money. If Mr. Giri has gone to Orissa and created employment for 4,000, young women who are relatively less educated, I think it is much more than spending 2% of CSR. That is number one. Number two is that these new areas, particularly as secondary textile, I also tried to work on the technical textile, on which, Pallav and others, they have worked, particularly that PPE kit, etc. The state government doesn't know. So I would request Mr. Dilip that, if you create a forum, where we educate the state government, please mind you that the main working in the government is the state government, not the government of India. That was also mentioned by your experience of Vietnam and other pension you mentioned, that maybe if we educate the state government, particularly those who are coastal states, and many such things will happen. And it is all possibility. It is our country. We have to make it, and we have to work together. But very briefly, I'll mention that thing, and I will again thank you.
Thank you, Pandaji. We have to work on the mindset. Both industry and government has to work on the mindset. Plus, as you suggested, that state governments need to be proactive to catch up, and then the story can change, or the story can become more positive. Thank you, Pandaji. I'll come to Sunita ji. Madam, sorry for keeping you waiting.
No, it's okay.
And we want your suggestions and advice and how the whole process can be taken further.
Yeah, I just have 4 quick suggestions, and I think most of the suggestions are emanating from the discussion itself. Number one is that we need to focus on the holistic skilling. When I talk about holistic skilling, it's not only the domain level skilling, it has to be what we call a foundational as also the transferable skill. This is what the last speaker, Panda, was talking about, that we need to focus on soft. So, because my own experience with the industry is that while domain they can teach, but what is required going forward in variety of job roles, whenever there's a change in the world of work, is a transferable and the foundational skills, they are must. Correct. So we need to focus on a holistic skill development. We also need to focus on continuous learning. What has been the focus area of this particular book? That is reskilling, upskilling, and new learning. Because come what may, whether it's a IR 40 or a pandemic situation, if the enterprises are in a process of ensuring that their workers, their officers are reskilled, upskilled, then I think we can take, we can really win the war against the losses of jobs. Third important thing is that we need to focus on innovation. What has happened is that in this world of skill and world of work, there is no focus on innovation design, especially in Indian context where we have a huge small sector I will not even call them the medium sector. It's a very small sector where we have less than 5% enterprises dominating the Indian enterprise scene. 80% are such which are less than 5. From the ministry side, we have been focusing on cluster development, what Shada sir was talking about in terms of the apprenticeship. Yes, work-based learning is very, very important. So we are now focusing on cluster-based. I think Devendra Gupta ji had focused on, either Devendra Gupta ji or Pallav Banerjee had focused on one district, one product and one standard. So I think to some extent we are already moving towards standardization of skill development, but we're also focusing on cluster development, and that's the way forward when it comes to work-based learning. And final, I will say, if we really want industry to be part of it, as I said earlier, the industry has to own it up. And I think from the government side, we are already following the employer-based skilling, where we are providing incentive, whether under the apprenticeship program or the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. So, and for that, we are also seeking assistance, and I think the industry has to provide the assistance in terms of training of trainers and in terms of training of assessors. Because if industry has to accept the quality of the skilling which is coming out of the skill ecosystem, I think they have to necessarily offer their workbenches and their workspaces, not only for sensitizing the trainers, but also sensitizing the assessors. Because if we are able to have the right quality of a trainer, right quality of assessor, I'm sure the kind of a problem that we are facing in the world of work, of skill shortage, shortage and skill mismatch, that will not arise, because then we'll have the right kind of people who are available. So these are some of the suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam. Along with your other suggestions, the message is that industry has to own the onus to make it really progress further. Thanks a lot, madam. Now I'll come to Dr. Daly Koshy ji. Yep. And as you all know that Dr. Saab has written a book, Runway to Skilled India. So we would like to, I'd like to talk to Dr. Koshy that in the light of these discussions, how do you see your new book, Runway to Skilled India, taking the dialogue forward? What are the specific and related messages in your book before we officially launch the cover and the poster of the book? Please throw light on this. Dr. Koshy.
Yeah, first of all, for an author, it's a very important moment that good people who with an intellectual depth and engagement with the industry, with this entire skill ecosystem are around. So that is very important. I want to thank each one of you. A small story of a wrestler called Milo comes to my mind when you ask this question. He used to, go for his training, and he found a small calf, and he took up this calf in his hand and walked for the training. And every day he went on bringing it back, and then next day he was taking it. And the calf went on to grow as a cow. And Milo used to still go on having the training. And every day he was lifting the growing up cow. And from calf to cow, he was able to lift as he went on training every day. So the strength of the skill system is something like this, If you are able to improve the capacity of our people, which is a huge human capital which India has, that is when we talk about demographic dividend. Mark Tully had called it demographic bulge of India. But however, that can only become effective if by 2022, when India becomes 75, we should see this 2035 when this golden window is going to taper, and to 2050 is going to run out. I have seen the same when I went to Tokyo. The aging population had already touched nearly 16, 17. It was racing to 20%. And there was a Bunka fashion college where they had set up 50 plus people's measurements taking system for making a study. And therefore it was important that the aging population, when it becomes more than 20, when we look at the country differently. So this is a big chance for India to build its human capital with more skills. So when we say that 129th rank in 161 countries in a human development report or whatever, it disappoints us, because I have seen as the director of NID and before that in NIFT, what can creativity and skills together can do. We are all the time emphasizing on just skills acquisition. Since I started with, in this education scenario, after having worked as a manager and administrator, etc., till 1987, I saw that, people had pattern making skills, construction skills, imagining the first collection of, NIFT in 1989, for example, is still in my memory. So then I saw the diverse skills in National Institute of Design. And then I saw in ATDC how those skills are actually looking at a different level, at a entry level point towards the supervisory level. So this entire system of India, it needs to really look at how to, how to do this run for success, reskilling, upskilling, and new skilling. And as I said earlier, the relearning, unlearning, and new learning. This simultaneously, if it goes on, the country changes. So the message of the book is really simple. And it started with 2014, when I wrote about this run strategy in a Adhiveshan, which was our national meet, where I told that, we need to now to look at the training, not just as one type of training, but we need to look at all the three aspects of it. The farm migrant population being trained is reskilling, but also tools and new techniques are new skill reskilling. And when it comes to new technologies and new processes, what Devendra has been repeatedly telling, that becomes a new skilling. And in between, you have upskilling, which is a continuous process where you are really looking at efficiency levels, which Pallab said about, and Dilip talked about competencies. So these are acquired at the upskilling. So unless you bring it together, you are not going to see a big improvement. And that is what my desire through this book to communicate to the youth, especially the 2017 Abu Dhabi Youth Declaration of 2017 really impacted me. When they look at the millennial goals, the SD, the goals of the UN goals, as well as they brought in the millennial goals together to think what should be the youth doing going forward. And what Pallab, I think Sharda Prasad mentioned, and Pandas have also mentioned about, and Sundaji just concluded with thinking innovation. The first line of the youth declaration start with think innovation, think green. They look at Industrial Revolution 4.0. Entire youth declaration, which I listened to in that group, was very, very motivating to me. So I think there were 2014, then this 2017, when this Skills Summit happened in Gandhinagar, when the Honorable Prime Minister said about farm to fabric, to fashion, to factory, to the foreign, that entire chain which he explained really was motivating. And it was there all over the Gandhinagar area, the farm to fashion and fashion to foreign message. But the value chain requires not only just value addition, it requires value creation. Value diminishing and value addition are all the time happening. Somebody is diminishing value by keeping stock, as somebody said, 30% of the stock if it's lying unsold. You already diminished the value of what you did. And therefore, you need to move away from purely value subtraction, value diminution, value addition to value creation. That can only happen with the creativity combining with skills. So bringing my experience from the NIFT and NID days of exposure to design and creativity, and the skills which I saw it in very ground village people and the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs, minorities, the NBCFDC, the Social Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, the Ministry of Textiles, the large group of people who are actually wanting this training to do something better in life. I really believe that this is something which we need to understand and listen to the youth a lot more. And one of the main, advocacy in the book is about that youth declaration, taking it to listening to youth, and then coming out with the policies and strategies as the go local, be vocal kind of a strategy, where we are looking at decongesting the metropolises post-COVID and the digitization challenges. So I think the book is not one of those, pedantic scholarly treatment of the subject, but it's more about how we can really look at, building this new ecosystem where the 6,000 plus clusters of India. I'm glad that Sunitaji mentioned about it. It is a major point, because I have seen when we created the handbook for handicrafts, the directory in NID, the type of skills which we had, and we never created a craft university. So from the craft DNA to the geographical specializations to the design skills of the country to the new skills which are required by the technology and creating new value and new brands, that becomes the kind of argument if you look at it in the book. So I'm very happy that Sri Padma Shri Mohandas Pai has written a very commendable foreword, and I look forward to all your support to make this book reach more people, to be read and criticized or critiqued. I would prefer, but even if criticism, it is okay. When I wrote the Indian Design Age in 2008, I was expecting, but it still remains to be, the only book about an Indian perspective. So I felt that creating knowledge base for our skill ecosystem is actually equally important as we are doing transactions. We can just be traffic inspectors standing yellow, green, and amber, but we need to also create knowledge. So one effort, very humble effort, is to encourage other better scholars and better researchers and better, academicians around us to look at the system and create more knowledge base so that people take a skill ecosystem more seriously, and we are able to make this country move forward to a better India.
Thank you, Dr. Koshy. And here we reach at the point of time when we would like to talk about the book. We would like to unveil the cover of the book and the poster. I must say that we are fortunate, DFE Publications is fortunate. Dr. Koshy has chosen us as a publisher for this book. The book would be available now from now on till 18th January as a pre-publication offer, and then the this book would be available at Amazon bookshop. So I would request Mr. Deepak Singh ji to unveil virtually the book. I will convert him as a host.
Yes. So I want to say that it's first coming out as hardbound edition, and DFU has a very large, digital footprint through its Fascinating India, channel. So that's one of the reasons why the book is a little bit focused more on textile and apparel. So I thought, that will be an interesting aspect rather than going by the regular type of approach.
Just as a small introduction, DFU Publications has been around for the last 31 years. We have global web channel also called Fascinating Words in this industry, right from fiber, yarns, fabrics, garments, exports, imports, works through the supply chain. And DFU Publications is focused on domestic fashion, apparel, brand, and retail industry. That is also digital website is there. So this is our new venture into book publications, and we hope with your support this will be a successful thing.
By fault, you have made Mr. Devender Gupta the host.
Okay. I'll read that. Devender Gupta, then we'll have to release the book. One sec. Yes. Deepak Singh ji, now you are the host. You can use the slide share and
Thank you. Yeah, I worked with Mohandas ji when he was the chairman of the FICCI Skill Development Committee between 2013 to 15. I found it very inspiring, his ideas. He was also with the PM's Council, Honorable PM's Council for Skill Development, I remember. And, he has written a foreword which reflects the changes from Germany. I mean, he has, I think, taken a macro view from the German system, which Sharda Prasad ji explained a lot. So he has made a very, very studied forward to this book. I'm very grateful to him. And many people have contributed from ATDC. A lot of people have been interacting with me over the years across 200 centers. Means I used to say that it's like a Maruti workshop. Wherever you go, there is an ATDC. So, even in a hill in Manipur or in Sikkim, and we had ATDC. In every remote village, we set up during the Integrated Skill Development Scheme. So 2014 to 2017 and to the Youth Declaration. And I then found that the Honorable Chief Minister of UP, when he launched One District, One Product, I was one of the 60 CEOs which he had invited. And I was fortunate to be also speaker on one of the panels there. And I found that particular thing was very dear to my thinking. This kind of an approach which the Chief Minister has taken in UP for 75 districts. I never knew there are 18 types of good in UP earlier. And, the type of rice, the type of, Pital Nagari, Moradabad, or to the kind of chicken curry, the kind of diversity of the 75 district, just mind-blowing. And then the Amazon tie-up with them. And Amazon's 2-day August sale had 91,000 new vendors joining for that sale. So there is a new model possible now for making this. So that was another inspiring point for this book. And then the 2019, the BVOC, 200 students getting the BVOC degree. Because I've always believed that this new skilling can only come through such a program where you really train people in 2,000 hours of skill, 1,000 hours of soft skills, life skills, general inputs, making him or her in a skilled Indian, ready for the world, with a new technology. So that is where, and then the COVID happened. So I got time to write this. So from June to September, October, till I talked to Sanjay ji on this book. I think sometime in September only we were working with Mohandas ji and Sanjay ji on this book's forward and the publication. So I'm glad that before the year is out, all of you have been so kind to be here, and I don't want to take time. We have already exceeded all the time limits. Thank you very much. Do support this book and make other people read it. You yourself will get a copy which Sanjay ji has promised to send you across for being a panelist today. I want to thank everyone. Thank DFU. Salil was planning to ask questions, but I think you'll have to defer it to another day probably. I don't know. I leave it to Sanjay ji. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Congratulations, Dr. Koshy.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Dr. Koshy.
Congratulations, Dr. Koshy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. The QR is there.
Really useful.
Yeah.
Just book your order.
Yeah. You can order on the QR.
Yeah.
And there is a pre-publication offer, 20% off on this. And for institutions and all, there is a 30% off on this. This can be accessed at dfupublications.com and the order can be placed. Thank you, Dr. Koshy.
Thank you very much.
Really pleasure. It's really pleasure and it's very good moment. Now,
thank you, Sanjay ji.
Yeah, I'll just request Salil to conclude this and finally Shaboni to say a vote of thanks. Salil, if you have any pertinent point or remarks to
make, I don't think I have anything. Thank you.
A lot has been said and I think it has been worth. Salil, just conclude this, please. Salil, can you conclude this?
Yeah, I think because so much has been said, it's been around 100 minutes, मुझे गागर में सागर करना पड़ेगा. I don't think that I am equipped and I have that kind of a bandwidth, in terms of knowledge or skill to conclude all this. But since the opportunity has been given, it is a proud privilege, I'll quickly try to take 1 or 2 minutes, I think, like Giriji said, that every opportunity has some hidden that, every pandemic has some hidden opportunity. This is how I think Shai has stood tall, they have shown it to the whole world. And when Shanta Prasad ji said that though Shahi was able to, hold all their workforce, not many would have been able to do it, Then both Mr. Pallab as well as his good friend, Devender Gupta ji, both they have given the brand side, that how COVID had thrown that lot of that, unforeseen problem to all the exporters when buyers were turning on in terms of, both in the renegotiation mode as well as cancelling and asking them to hold this, when realizing that they were in a strewn away situation, because some things were at the cut stage, some things were at the dispatchment, that shipment stage, some things were stuck at the custom stage, And then from the policy maker side, I think like Pandaji said that there is a strong need for decentralization, that India being a cooperative federalism, till the time states don't make a strong case for it, I think India will not really become a strong industrial force, And then from ma'am's side, the only women in the entire gentleman club, she very strongly said that underlined message was skill, 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 that India needs to be very strong in skill set, but more important is the mindset, because it is the mind which tames the entire thing. And then Sharda ji took a lot of pains in terms of, taking us right from 1950 onward, that how exactly the entire panoramic change has happened, at the large scale, India starting from that institute, training institute, to almost the biggest number world has seen. Obviously, India is a big country, and it is much more fragmented, but still it doesn't take away the credit that India has the maximum number of institutes. And now, fortunately, some of them, they have started coming in global 50-20 also, and many more would come. And then I think not to take credit away from Roshan Baidji, when he says that repurposing, his underlying message was that how beautifully from day one he was able to repurpose his factory over the night, which Devenderji said that India is not prepared to take it, or Mr. Pallab said that over the night, like Vietnam says, but I say that there exists exception in India also, from day one he said, from sports sphere, I was able to repurpose my factory, and more like in the nation building. When he started taking up the cause of this PP making, I think that was more towards nation building. That's how now I'm trying to just wrap it around the entire concept of Atmanirbhar. Modi ji's pet concept, which comes straight from his heart. The Atmanirbharta will only come. It will only come, I'll reiterate, till the time we have been able to connect all the dots. So all these gentlemen, including respected lady, they have tried to put the dots. Now question is, how do we connect all of this? This will not come till the time all the pillars they will fire. Pillar number one, obviously, is the facilitator called government administration. Pillar number two is, which is industry, Of course, industry has to take it up, because the entire world is now inching in the direction of privatization, Till the time the industry doesn't take up the onus, it will be incomplete. And then comes the third side, academia, who is at the core of it, That is why today we are here. The moment of truth has come. I would say that I'll again like to underline the coinage. He says, RUN, R-U-N. I would say that it is just not an acronym, as one of the speakers said, that RUN can be R plus U, it can be R plus N, or I don't know which way to go, So the momentum lies as long as India can reskill, because the time is that India is already underskilled, I don't know to what proportion reskilling is required. Of course, new skill is going to be the underlying message of the day, simply because of the fact that today digitalization is the order of the day, and technology every day is improving itself. Science has started to move much faster. COVID, this vaccination has come in around 10 months versus last that, vaccine had come, it took 10 years. So today we are in an age which is moving with the leap year pace, speed of light. And third is new skilling. I think new skilling, everybody today has to, as everybody has been saying, that we now got to get into the more like into the mood of and mindset of multi-skilling, which Chennai sir very correctly said, that competency rather than skill. The multiplicity of skill, multifaceted, that the need and demand of the day and the hour will only come as long as we think that we are not only into one fit. We have to have today many fits, many hats need to be donned at a time, and the biggest of all is thinking done. With that, I think I will like to conclude here. This is all from me. God bless you all.
Thank you. Shaboni, can you just extend the thanks? Shaboni?
I think she has disconnected. This is a message that she has sent.
Okay. Okay, closing it here now. Thanks a lot for everybody spent so much of time over here and shared all the insights. And it was, I must say, treasure trove on the skilling industry. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks the audience also. Take care. God bless you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Happy,
much.
happy New Year and Merry Christmas to all of you. If we don't see before that, thank you very much.
In fact, the Christmas has come early for all of us,
Thank you. Thank you.
It has left us on a very high note.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations, Dr. Koshy. Well done.
Thank you so much.